And we're back. Ep004, Season 2, and we got a good one for you guys. On today's episode, we talk about upcoming events coming on for Mostly Lifting Stuff podcast later this week. We'll get more in detail into that in a second. We talk pet peeves, Sunday Scaries. We tell you guys the Song of the Week winner and give our nominations for this next week. And we give our Shoutout Sundays, followed by a really fun interview with a professional athlete, Ian Yetsko. So, let's go and start this podcast off on the right foot, and let's tell you guys a little bit about what's coming up this week for us and the podcast. Garrett?
Yeah, so we were asked by the OU Rec to do a takeover, and that'll be this Friday, and we'll be on their Instagram page. We each got our own workouts planned for that day, so I'll be doing my max effort upper for my workout program, and Noah has...
I got a hypertrophy leg workout, quad focused for you guys. So this is happening Friday, August 2nd at OU Recwell's Instagram page, which is OU Recwell. And I think we're the first people on there that don't actually work for OU that they're letting take over.
Yeah, so big trust there.
Yeah, 2 alumni, but also 2 current graduate students. They just wanted to hand it over and say, I don't think they know what they're getting themselves into. Like, we're about to mess this Instagram up.
I don't know. That's more for you. I think they told Noah no shirtless pictures though. So
they didn't say that. So actually, I haven't read the rules, so they might have said that. So it might happen.
We're just rolling into it.
Not.
Yeah.
If you're curious, if there will be shirtless pictures of myself or of Garrett or of some random other person, you got to check out OU Recwell's page on Friday. We're gonna walk you through our days, show you guys a little bit of what we eat on a daily basis, what our lives look like outside of this podcast. But then also we're gonna juxtapose Garrett's powerlifting mentality and his conjugate training and versus my bodybuilding focused training. And you guys can give each of our workouts out a try and see which one kicks you in the ass a little bit harder.
Yeah, you'll definitely get to see 2 very different flavors of things you can do at the gym. I'll be doing my workout for the conjugate program I'm doing at Oakland, so we're going to make that work.
Yeah, I feel like we're going to have to make some alternative
No, it'll be
workouts.
fine. It'll be fine.
Okay.
We'll get it figured out. Not a problem. So just, maybe something that you have never tried before too. So I know last week was my first week benching with bands.
Yeah. How'd that go?
That was pretty crazy. I mean, we had over 110 pounds on each side at the top. So the weights get pretty small at that point. So it's exciting.
Wow. So other than the bands, it sounds like my workouts.
Small weights.
Yeah, small weights. Small weights. But
yeah. So like that day we'll go through, we'll show you guys what we're eating throughout the day. I know Noah's transitioning out of a cut into gaining weight like a normal human being who's lifting should be doing.
All right, you're making it sound like that transition is from like yesterday I was cutting, today I'm like on this crazy bulk. Is not the case. We're actually going to get into this here in a second. We'll get a little bit more detail.
Like 2 weeks in between.
There was a solid month of rebounding and refinding my set point and just readjusting to eating the amount of calories I should be eating at a maintenance level.
Yeah.
And now we're slowly going to transition that low end of the maintenance, get up to the little bit higher end of the maintenance, and then later on, once my body normalizes to that, slowly gain weight and get a little bit higher into like a clean bulk, as they would say in the lifting world.
As they would say. But
speaking of gaining weight, eating food, let's talk the podcast pet peeve this week.
Yeah. So the pet peeve that we thought of for today is the person that is exaggerating their dedication. I mean, we've all talked to that person at the gym who's telling you they're putting 3 hours a day in 6 days a week and they're eating 5,000 calories. Like, you hear these people like...
And he's 150 pounds.
And it's somebody that you see at the gym regularly, and the jumps aren't happening that you would expect if you were putting that level of dedication in. So be honest with people. I mean, people are just happy to know that you're putting in work to better yourself. You don't have to try to go over the top with what you're, more than what you're actually doing to try to get people to appreciate you. I mean, just by being at the gym and seeing somebody there, they're gonna have a level of respect for you just because they know you're trying to better yourself.
Yeah. So if we're gonna talk the talk, walk the walk. All right. This is actually something that I find I love about the bodybuilding world. I find the most value within it is because it's impossible to cheat. It is possible to cheat, but it is impossible to cheat results. A lot of times, unless you're getting into like steroids and stuff like that. But if you're putting in the work, if you're eating right, especially in the bodybuilding world, like if you prep for 52 weeks out of the year, but a lot of people consider the 16 to 20 week like cutting prep the only prep. Like you can't cheat that. Like you can't cheat being in a caloric deficit. You can't cheat getting on stage and being that low of body fat, being that vascular. Like those are all things that you had to put the work into for.
Yeah, you can't hide when you're pretty much all out there.
Yeah. So that kind of walks us into what Garrett and I want to talk about this week. We're going to call this Scary Sundays or the Sunday Scaries. Sorry about that. We're going to be this is the Sunday Scaries because we don't want to be that guy. We walk in the gym on a Sunday afternoon and everyone's like, whoa. Or that girl. You walk in the gym and all the other girls are like, damn girl, that booty. Or something like that, you know? But in order to do that, you got to build up your body. That's what bodybuilding is, right? It's sculpting. Part of sculpting isn't just about cutting weight. I know a lot of people, when they get in the gym, it's all about losing weight. And they think about diets always as like being caloric deficits, losing body fat. But a lot of people don't think about a diet is also being in a caloric surplus. It's just intentional eating. And so there are a lot of guys who talk, oh, I'm eating 5,000 calories. I just can't gain weight, which if you're eating 5,000 calories, you're not gaining weight. Like you're either like...
Are you running marathons every day or what are you doing?
Or you're like Shaq or something like that.
Right.
Because that's impossible. It's just impossible. Clinically, scientifically, objectively, impossible. But there are a lot of guys that have asked myself or asked Garrett, like, how do I gain weight? I just can't seem to figure out how to gain weight, which is something that I find interesting because I think both Garrett and I share this. I don't think either of us have ever struggled with like gaining weight or eating enough food.
I mean, I know personally when I showed up on Oakland's campus to start my sophomore year, so that'd be almost 3 years ago, I was about 190, 195 maybe. So between now and then, I've gone up to about 230, 235. So
it's 4 years, 40 pounds. That's a pretty big jump. But it's also not like, oh, the freshman 15 where it's the jump of Garrett doesn't have that much body fat on him. He is a lean 230.
Thank you.
Like, objectively. You might be able to see on Friday on Instagram if his shirt comes off.
But no, there's and I mean that was accomplished through a period like consistently eating intentionally. I mean, I can tell you that I have hardly ever counted calories. If I did, maybe it was for like a week at a time. You don't necessarily need to do that to determine what your maintenance level is.
Right.
I eat very consistently as far as the foods I eat throughout the week. My meal prep isn't the most exciting thing in the world. It's pretty consistent, chicken meals, beef meals, sometimes turkey, but by doing that, people are like, oh, doesn't it get boring? Like, well, I'm hungry enough when it's time to eat. It's not really boring for me. So that's not really a problem for me. I could pretty much eat anything by the time it's mealtime. So, but that allows me to make small changes. If I notice I'm hitting a wall as far as, I'm gaining enough weight, I'm getting really sore and like feel like I'm not replenishing what I'm putting out, like then I can make a small change because I know, okay, I made this much food this week. I can just up it a little bit and see how I respond to that. And so even through like the prep for my powerlifting competition, I was eating a lot because I was on pace. I was trying to gain about 5 pounds in 6 weeks, and like a week out, I was right about there. I backed it off about a day before. Mm-hmm. Again, just by knowing what my body is used to, and had no problem making weight and being at the upper end of the weight that I could be. So just understanding what your maintenance level is just going to give you so much room to grow as far as whether you want to gain weight or if you're trying to lose weight. That's probably the most important thing.
This is what I love about intuitive eating, because to intuitively eat doesn't necessarily mean you have to know the exact amount of calories you're eating without tracking them on an app like MyFitnessPal or anything like that. It's just being aware, self-aware about yourself, self-aware how you react, but also aware about like what works and what hasn't worked, and really just making adjustments every day. So for me, I'm stepping into intuitive eating for the first time in like well over a year. Like I think last August 1st or July something was when I started like really tracking calories. It was for a very different reason than I am now. Before it was making sure I wasn't eating too much, and now it's all about making sure I'm eating enough. So like our tricks and tips from the Mostly Lifting Stuff podcast studios and the boys here is simply like to not just like get big, or as the douchebag would say, get swole, man. We just want to like to have a controlled weight gain is simply like eat, but eat with intention. So for me, I have specific goals for this next, you can call it off season, but it's very much on season. But for like 7 months before I do a cut next year, in the spring, I have pinpointed 4 areas that I really want to mature and grow, have muscle development in. So one of those is my quads, which is why on Friday, if you go to OU Recwell's Instagram and follow them, you'll see what I'm doing on my leg days to really focus on my quads, to grow them, because I think they're lagging in muscle development and muscle maturity. So I have my quads I want to focus on. I really want to work on the foundation of my abs and my core. Simply like, abs are definitely made in the kitchen. Yes. I would say the showing of abs is what's made in the kitchen. But if you don't have abs to show, no matter how far you cut down, it's going to be really hard for you to see. And I think I've never had like the best like abs. But definitely when I cut down this year, I was at a body fat percentage where I'm like, dude, I should be showing my abs a lot more than I am right now. And I think part of it is genetically, my abs like seat pretty far back in my physique, and other people they seat a little bit more forward. So they're easier to show. So for me to like adjust that for next year, I really just want to build them up. So build that foundation. So it's a little easier to show them when I am putting the work in the kitchen to cut down. So that's one thing I'm working on. The other 2 things are I want to work on my upper chest and have a better chest split, and then the width of my lats, so I have a wider back. And those are 4 areas where every day I step into the gym, but also every day I'm eating, I can intentionally work on those. Because if I'm not eating enough, no matter how much work I'm putting in the gym, those things are simply not going to grow. And that's not like an opinion. That's like, if you're not having enough calories in your diet and the right form of the calories, it's not going to grow. So for me, my nutritional intake or my diet looks very similar to the foods I was eating while on my cut, but it's just a higher volume of those foods, and mixing in with instead of having with most meals like a bunch of like spinach or broccoli or something like that, I'm still eating my vegetables. Calm down. It's more reintegrating a caloric dense foods, and this is my number 1 tip for especially people who want to gain weight. Is like, you have a hard time putting down the amount of food that you should be eating, is to gain weight that you want to gain, is simply like caloric dense food. So eat things that very small portion size with very large caloric sizes. So like peanut butters, oils, avocados. Even on the fruit side, you got kiwis and bananas. These things that simply like for what you're eating a lot more. You're eating a lot less food with a lot more caloric impact or intake that you wouldn't have had if you're eating something that's an alternative to those things. So for me, that's where I really have to start, is really focusing, figuring out what I want to work on, where I want to get bigger, and then control that weight gain by slowly adding calories, so I'm not like force feeding myself and develop a food, whatever they're called.
Yeah, there was a time at the start of last semester where I decided I was going to try to put on some good weight, and I called it Project 300, because I had in my notebook the way that I could eat in order to get 300 grams of protein in a day. And I did that for about a month. And I gained about 5 pounds, like relatively easily.
Yeah.
And it was one thing, because the mistake I made was I ramped up too quickly though, and it wasn't sustainable. I was always like feeling full when it came time to eat again, and like I just approached it the wrong way, where if you take like slower steps and just change 1 or 2 things at a time, you can really get a feel for how your body responds.
Yeah.
And the other thing too is like it's not a linear relationship. Like the more you eat, you're not just going to like steadily gain weight. The curve kind of looks like this. Like at the beginning, you're going to gain a lot when you start eating more, but then you're going to taper out. And so you're just constantly going to have to keep adjusting if you are trying to continue to build weight, like build muscle and gain weight. Because if you think about it, the more muscle you have, the more calories your body's burning, literally just breathing, just being alive.
Your resting metabolic rate will rise.
Right. So you're going to have to keep compensating for that. I mean, I think that's where people get misguided a lot, is they'll reach a level where they're comfortable with how much they eat, and then they'll keep eating that amount because it gave them results in the past, but it doesn't translate to future results because they're stuck at their maintenance level.
That's a really good insight. To go back though to 300 grams of protein a day.
Yeah.
That is a shit ton.
It was a little crazy. It was, effective, but a little crazy. Yeah. And so I've dialed that back some, and I'm pretty much sitting at maintenance calories for most time right now. Being that I'm competing at the same body weight again in December that I did in June, I'm not trying to balloon up too much in between then. So just kind of riding the wave with my maintenance level, and then once we get a month or so out, I'll start dialing it in so I know exactly where I'm going to be at. So
yeah, I know a lot of people, they don't either know or they have misinformation on like what protein is, especially when it comes to like working out, and when you have 2 guys on a podcast and they're talking about protein, like they all think about like bro science, and like those guys are always just like, oh, where's the protein shake at, as Garrett drinks from a blender bottle. Is that
just
protein?
Water.
Just water. There you go.
Water. Lots of water.
And I think they give a really bad rap to protein, because a lot of people like just like they lose sight of the reason behind why they're eating it, but also why they need to have it in their diet at this certain level. So for one, like if you're trying to maintain your body mass, so your muscle mass, I should say, you should be. The research shows that you should be eating, for most individuals, at least 0.8 grams of protein per pound of body weight. And if you want to gain muscle mass, you're going to be taking in more caloric energy and more protein, so it builds your muscles, your muscle fibers when you tear them down, and then when you're restructuring them and resting and they're healing themselves. That's how you get bigger.
Yeah.
But you need more protein for that. So if you're trying to gain weight, I would always say the research collectively shows at least 1 gram to 1.25 is where I'll cap it for myself. But some people, they might need to 1.5 grams. But anything over that, honestly, like it starts to get where like you're no longer, your body is just literally like shitting it out. Like it's not taking in what it already has, everything it needs, and then the rest of it is kind of just like excess.
Yeah.
So there is eating too much protein.
Yeah, I can tell you being at 1.5 grams per pound of body weight, because I was actually 330. I was going for 330 a day, and it was definitely like just constantly feeling full.
Yeah.
But I mean, a lot of people, if you look at what you're eating in a day, a lot of people would be surprised how little protein they're actually getting. So that's where things like supplementation can help. But I wouldn't make it your end-all, be-all as far as, oh, I want to gain weight, let me start drinking protein. Because in the end, it is a supplement. It's supposed to supplement what you're actually already doing.
So were you getting, when you're trying to hit 300, 330, were you getting it synthetically through supplements, or were you mostly getting it all naturally through like the whole foods you're eating?
I was probably getting about, I would say probably 50 grams a day from protein shakes, so probably like 2 shakes a day. Right now, though, I'm not taking any protein. I'm just getting all my calories through the food I eat. And for me, I've had trouble with like lactose before, so protein not always the best thing.
Whey protein will get you.
Certain ones are better than others, so I switched to a vegan protein. That was even worse. So
it tastes like chalk. So
so I'm on like a hiatus from the protein right now, and I am not losing all of my muscles. So I guess it's not the end all be all.
Yeah, but you're probably still eating pretty high protein levels.
Yeah,
I know for me, when my protein's at 200 grams a day, I don't supplement protein whatsoever. I get it all through my natural sources. There's the eating and the types of foods that I eat. But now that I'm trying to hit a little bit more, I have seen it has come a little bit more difficult. Simply because my appetite, but also like through the cut and doing it for the amount of time I have, like my appetite definitely isn't as big as it used to be, which is good in some aspects, but also like when you're trying to eat more food, it kind of sucks sometimes. Like you're like, I don't really want to eat this food, but I kind of need to right now. So for me, I just started implementing drinking shakes like in the morning with my oats for my first meal, and it's been pretty good. But like Garrett said, like sometimes whey protein really messes with your digestive system, and so that's the only time I'll really drink it, is because if I know I'm gonna be home like in the next hour or so, I don't have to be anywhere, safe and sound. That's the only time I'll institute it into my diet.
Yeah, funny story about like trying to gain weight. We were in Size Up supplements.
Yeah.
Over by the mall at Great Lakes Crossing, and there's a guy that always is working there, literally always there. So we'll talk to him and stuff. And while we were there, a kid came up to him at the desk, and then like 2 minutes later, just like turns around and walks out. And so we were kind of talking to the guy, and we're like, "What was that all about? Like, what happened?" And he said the kid came in here and basically asked like, "What can you give me to get big?" And being someone that's been that's done like a decent amount of reading and understands, a little bit of how the body works. Like for us, it's just like obvious, but for a lot of people, they just don't understand, I just wanted, like the kid just wanted to get big. He was probably 15 or 16 years old, limited understanding of what actually goes on. And the guy just told him, he said, "You just need to eat."
Yeah. And a lot of times people feel like, I'm already eating so much.
Right.
But you're really not, especially on the protein side of things.
Yeah, definitely. If you can go through like a typical day and write down everything you're eating and figure out how much protein you're getting, if you're struggling to gain weight, it's probably pretty low.
Yeah.
And also if you're trying to gain weight, like carbs get a bad rap, but they are definitely your friend when it comes time to like gain weight. Like you're not just going to get fat because you eat carbs.
No.
Like they are definitely your friend. You're going to have more energy. You're going to be performing better in the gym.
When you got glycogen levels stored, it's a man's best friend in the gym. Let me tell you, my glycogen levels were real low for a very long time, and now that they're pretty stacked up, every time I go in the gym, I just feel like a whole new lifter.
Yeah, it makes a big difference, and I think people get caught up in like the old way of thinking where it was like, first people said, "Oh, fat's gonna make you fat." So now like the shift was to eating carbs, and then carbs are gonna make you fat. So now it's like now people are going like keto and they're just eating protein and fat, and it's like carbs are your friend. Like that's your body's easiest source of fuel. If you want to perform in the gym, that's gonna be the way you're gonna do it. Like it's funny, but like some of the best workouts I had, like I can remember in college in like my sophomore year, we were working on a group project and like slammed a bunch of pizza. Went to the gym afterwards. Probably the best arm pump I've ever had because I literally had just such high stores of energy, just like ready to use like that. It was ridiculous. I'm not advising you do that every day, but
no, I'm gonna start eating pizza every single day and see what happens.
Yeah, or just do conjugate, and it's like a proven thing. People eat Pop-Tarts and conjugate.
No, yeah,
during their workouts.
My absolute favorite thing about no longer cutting, but also having like a little bit more excess calories at bay every day, is my favorite pre-workout snack. So before I go to the gym, I have a little Rice Krispie treat. 17 grams of carbs right there, just a quick form. It digests super quick, and and it has sugar in it for a reason. Like, it just gives you that quick energy boost, and it's my favorite. I always have great days when I have a Rice Krispie treat right before my workout.
Okay.
I got a box of like 56 right there. So,
all right, we gotta do some shout outs.
Yeah. So, you want to do your shout out first?
All right. So my shout out this week is Ben Pollock. He is about to compete in his first bodybuilding show. I've done several programs from Ben.
Yeah, I was gonna say he's the one who structured your program, right?
Yeah,
he's
I've done a
powerlifting guy.
Powerlifting guy
doing bodybuilding.
World record at, I think it was 98 kilograms, but he did like 2,040 pounds or something like that.
Yeah,
as total. So super smart dude. He goes by PH Deadlift on Instagram because he is a doctor. Very smart. Everything's well thought out. I've done several of his programs. I run his program like for peaking for my meet. Probably the reason I got into powerlifting was doing his intermediate program last summer and seeing great results with that. I mean, over 10 weeks, my squat went up like 55 pounds.
That's a ridiculous amount of weight. It was
ridiculous
for someone
amount.
who's been lifting as long as Garrett. You usually don't see that big of a jump.
Yeah,
at that stage of like being an intermediate lifter at that point. Definitely
the amount of volume we were doing was something I was unaccustomed to, and it was a good challenge, and I responded to it. So, shout out Ben Pollock for writing some good programs and posting good content all the time.
Yeah, Doctor of Gains right there.
Yeah,
that's what his PhD is in, gains.
Yeah,
it's actually in, I think, physical culture or something like that, but
I'm not sure exactly.
Something. He's smart.
Yeah,
I'd listen to him.
Smart dude.
Yeah, my shout out this week isn't necessarily to a somebody, it's to a something that I think many of us have faced in life. Coming up, you're going to hear from Ian, and a big part of Ian's story is the multiple comebacks he's had in his career of being a professional athlete, of being injured and coming back from that injury, and getting injured again, and then coming back from that injury. But also the mentality he has behind that is not just about getting back to where he was, it's about obviously getting better and recovering from that said injury that he might have sustained, but catapulting that level of normal that he once knew. Is like getting way past the beyond where he was prior to getting injured. And so my shout out this week goes to the comeback stories. I know if you guys have listened to the podcast for long, you've probably heard that I broke my back when I was in the military. I got medically retired from it. That incident, when that happened, actually happened 5 years ago to the day. And so it's really interesting to think back upon like the last 5 years, where I've been physically, where I've been emotionally and psychologically from it, but also how I let that storyline, the narrative of being injured and the narrative of my new normal being drastically lower than it was before for performance side of things. And kind of let that win for a long time, and then getting to a point in life where I honestly, sorry Mama Bondi, but I said fuck it, like this is not going to defeat me, and so I really just like let go of that rationale, that ideal. So many doctors told me things I'll never be able to do again, and quite frankly, like on the 5-year anniversary of me breaking my back, I went and did the hardest, longest, worst leg day of my life, but it was also the best leg day, just to give them the 2 middle fingers of like, you're not holding me back. This is my comeback story, not just to come back to where I was, but to recreate a new level of functioning that I didn't even know was even realistic before I even got injured. So I'm sure there's many listeners out there that you have your own comeback stories. And here at the Mostly Lifting Stuff podcast, we would love to hear those. So if you want, DM us, send us a message, a little snippet of your comeback story, something that you face in life and now where you are, or if you're in the midst of coming back, or you are at the very lowest point where you feel like you just want to give up, or your fitness journey is over because of an injury or something like that. Talk to us.
Yeah, we're not mean guys. We'll talk.
No, we look like mean guys. Well, Garrett looks like a mean guy in the gym. I'm usually always pretty bubbly and happy. But we're really not. As you can see, little teddy bear right here. He's super nice. And then lastly, before we get into our interview with Ian, let's talk Song of the Week.
Song of the Week.
Who won last week, Garrett?
2 for 2. What can I say? I have a better taste in music than Noah.
This is only the pooling size is only 2, so we need at least 50 to have an accurate, objective, like stance to really see who has a better taste. But yes, listeners, you guys voted for Garrett's song nomination last week to win this week's Song of the Week, which is "Land of Make Believe" by From Ashes to New. I will put a little asterisk next to that because you did only win by 1 vote.
Did you vote?
You voted.
Did you?
I voted.
Oh yeah.
But you voted too.
Even.
Yeah.
So that's even. Yeah.
No, so you still only win by 1 vote. It's just it's such. What if somebody just couldn't get on Instagram that day? They had a flat tire. They lost signal. Instagram was down. They just couldn't get on there and vote for that one more time for home.
Well, there was probably the same thing happened to somebody.
Hey, I don't want to hear your rationale. I'm just saying. Thanks, guys, for coming in. I didn't suggest that song or nominate song expecting to win, to be honest with you. I thought I was going to get blown out of the water. So losing by 1 vote, honestly, is a win in my book. Okay, maybe not a win.
That's what losers
Maybe
say.
not a win, because I'm still very competitive and I hate losing. But I'm glad you guys were able to see 2 new songs. Maybe not new, but new to you, that you're able to add to your weekly playlist of what to listen to when you jam out at the gym. When you need to get that rep, need to get just fierce in the eyes and just like zone in.
Yeah. So let's give them this week's songs.
This week's songs.
You want to go first?
I'll go first. I actually switched which song I was going to introduce to you guys this week last minute. So let me make sure I get the artist correct. Okay. Garrett and I were talking before the podcast. His song used to be his alarm clock to get ready for the day. And I was like, shoot, I got a good one for you. It's a good one for you guys, but if I hear this song, it instantly makes me so angry, so mad, so miserable. It's one of those things where just I hear the noise of it or the sound of it and the especially the beginning of it, and it just clicks in my head to get pissed off. Because this was my alarm clock for the first 9 months. I was at my unit in the Army, so those first 6 to 9 months are probably the worst 6 to 9 months of your life. You have the least amount of sleep, you have the most amount of stress, your life sucks, and you're always tired. Now you're waking up at 4:30 and you have to go do it all over again that next day, and you know it's not going to be fun. So my song is "This Is the Best" by USS. If you haven't listened to it before, it's a rockin' song, to be honest with you. I hope it doesn't make you as angry as it makes me or trigger you emotionally. But I do hope you guys find it useful for yourselves in the gym and give it a vote.
Yeah, so my song, this was my alarm clock in high school actually. Bad Company, Five Finger Death Punch's version of it. I know there's an original version, but this one, I don't know, it gets you a little bit more hyped up, I guess. So, back in high school, little Garrett, trying to be a badass, Garrett was jamming to Bad Company every morning. So, there was definitely like a point, 15 seconds into the song where it picks up, and that's pretty much where you'd wake up if it was your alarm. So
yeah, I feel like I just know you so much better now. Things are starting to make a lot more sense.
Yeah,
that this is what you started your days off with.
Yeah,
as a hormone raging teenager.
Who even needs coffee? Just
a little bit of Five Finger Death Punch.
A little bit of Five Fingers. So vote, let us know. I think this might be Noah's best chance of winning, although I have been kind of sandbagging and saving Five Finger songs because I probably could have done one every week. But
yeah, there's certain bands that I honestly I could give one of their songs every single week for like a year, and quite frankly I haven't even brought them up yet. So don't worry, I got some things in my back pocket.
He's trying to save it. He's trying to win those.
So when his dwindles down, I'm all about longevity. I'm not about I'm gonna deadlift 635 pounds,
50,
650 pounds, and when I'm 22, And by the time I'm 23, I won't be able to lift 300 because I'm broken. So I'm going to go with my mindset of I'm going to stick with 225 pounds and rep it out for 25 times and not hurt myself so that next year I'm, getting better rather than weaker.
I mean, volume-wise, you are putting more strain on your body than I am.
Hey.
Don't do math, apparently. It's just bad.
This isn't a math podcast, all right? Keep your engineering mind out of here. But no, so look out. Come Thursday. We love your engagement. I'm looking forward to the engagement this week. Every week we get more and more votes, more and more interaction, and we love to see that from you guys. And if you guys have suggestions, let us know. Let us know what your favorite lifting song is. We would love to put new music in our podcast or playlist as well. So.
Yeah. And if you follow Ben Pollock or you don't, go check out his page and wish him luck in his competition. He is shredded out of his mind right now. So
I just looked him up on Instagram.
It's pretty inspiring. So let him know that we sent you, and maybe he'll like our podcast. So
maybe he will. Look at last week, Nick Bear liked our podcast.
Yeah, you never know.
That's what we're kind of doing, just shooting out big names and see what we get in return. Because Kirsty is also just blowing up. She was a shout out last week, and big things are headed her way.
She got that powerlifting card, so
she did.
Big things coming.
So you heard it here first. Vote for your favorite song of the week come Thursday. Be on the lookout for that. And then on Friday, make sure you head on over to OU Recwell and find Garrett and I as we walk through our daily lives with you guys and juxtapose powerlifting and hypertrophy-based workouts.
And eating like a man and eating like a child. Juxtapose both those two.
Yeah, I do have a lot of suckers and Tootsie Pops that I like to have, so that's actually a lot. I can't remember. I used to love Tootsie Pops. Well, now I'm going to crave a Tootsie Pop. After this podcast, I'm going to the store and get a freaking Tootsie Pop.
What do you call it?
A Tootsie Pop? What do you call it?
It's a Tootsie Pop.
It's a Tootsie Pop. Sound it out.
We're not selling.
Sound it out.
All right, is that it?
That's it. Now we are going to introduce you guys to Ian,
who's going to magically appear right here.
Right here, we're going to turn this plant into a professional athlete. So enjoy this interview with Ian. It's a good one. And for you ladies out there, if you're not watching, now's the time to switch it over to YouTube because we got a good one for you today.
Yeah, enjoy.
And we're here with the one, the only, the Yeti, Ian Yetsko. Let's go.
He did say he was going to bring the energy, didn't he?
Yeah.
He did say he was going to bring the energy.
Yeah.
He puts the hyper in hypertrophy.
There you go.
I appreciate that. But yeah, we're here. And we've listened to the listeners, mainly the female listeners for the Mostly Lifting Stuff podcast, because you guys have asked repeatedly, undeniably, we need prettier faces on this podcast. And let me tell you, if you're listening to this on Spotify or iTunes, go ahead, stop listening to it, and go watch us on YouTube. Find us at Mostly Lifting Stuff and put us full screen because we got a treat for you tonight. We got Ian Yetsko. He's not just a jock. He's not just an intellect. He's not just a Steve Cook doppelganger. He is a professional athlete, and he's here to talk training with us today. So, Ian, give the people a rundown. Who are you?
Well, thanks for that introduction there. But, Ian Yetsko from DeWitt, Michigan. So about an hour and a half from here. Not too bad. Went to college at Open University, played baseball there. I was actually there for 5 years. I had a red shirt 1 year. And then after that, I've dabbled in professional baseball in the minor leagues for a couple of years. So, yeah.
So where are you at now? What's the status on that?
So right now I sustained an injury. I broke my hand, in my left hand, my hamate bone, and the hook of the hamate. I had a spring training opportunity with the Arizona Diamondbacks, and they sent me to winter ball to get ready for spring training and everything, get all tuned up. And I actually broke my hand 4 days into winter ball, so didn't even make it to spring.
That's rough.
Didn't even make it to spring training. So just trying to get healthy right now, PTing. Actually done with PT, but just trying to get strength back and everything. Put a lot of weight back on and all that fun stuff. So
okay.
Yeah, so you're saying you're rehabbing, right, or you just finished rehab?
Yeah, finished PT and everything. So now just trying to get everything going together, move the body, better, get stronger again. I lost a ton of weight with the cast on. Had a cast on for almost 6 weeks, so got to get all that back.
Yeah. So like I can imagine as someone who had a career in college, being an athlete, but now a professional athlete and having on seasons and off seasons, your training has to look vastly different between those transitions.
Yeah.
So right now, as you're scaling back to get back to like baseball shape, game shape, what's that look like?
Like on a daily basis type of thing? Yeah, so baseball, it's actually pretty crazy. Like you see a lot of guys in the big leagues and you see them on TV and stuff and they don't look very necessarily strong or whatever. When you get close to those guys, like some of those guys you think are skinny on TV have massive backs and they are very physically fit. And they just wear some baggy unis sometimes, but they're actually very, very strong guys.
Unless you're the Cincinnati Reds, and before the All-Star break, they wore the old school
the sleeveless. The sleeveless.
And Puig just was jacked.
Yeah, he's an absolute specimen, and it shows with how far he can hit a baseball. So yeah, the off season, I honestly enjoy the off season a lot. It's a lot of lifting, but agility stuff and running too, but then also a lot of skill work. So it actually is a ton of work, which a lot of people don't realize because in a season, if you have a game at 7 p.m., you're honestly at the ballpark around 2.
Yeah.
And it's like you get a ton of work in beforehand, before the game, and then most times you try to lift like 4 days a week. So like it's a long, long day, and especially in the minor leagues, you eat a lot of sandwiches. So you don't make the money like the big boys do, yet. So it's a lot of sandwiches, but it's definitely a grind. But I mean, you gotta love every second of it.
So what's the plan? Like, when do you think you'll be back on the field?
Yeah. So right now, like my injury too, of when it happened, when it took place, was literally the worst timing of an injury ever. Like right before the season, because as soon as you go down, there's always another guy ready to take your spot. And like that's just kind of how the effect goes in baseball. So I mean, maybe late this season, but it's not the best. We're looking at some people in my corner. We're looking at some possible winter ball options to try to turn some heads and maybe make another run at it, type of thing. So that's kind of the goal right now. Since it's already the end of July. Yeah. Just kind of look for winter ball options, in the warm areas, and see if we can turn some heads there and get ready for another season. Maybe get another opportunity. So.
Baseball is definitely the craziest sport when it comes to like how vast like the minor league system is.
Yeah, very much so.
So like from the time you graduated college, like what was the process like leading up to getting that call like to go to spring training?
So for where I got to my point in my career, like after Oakland, my buddy and I, Mike Brasso, he's actually in the big leagues right now with the Tampa Bay Rays.
Shout him out.
Yeah, Mike Brasso, Tampa Bay Rays, check it out. He's actually lighting it up right now on the show, making big bucks.
I swear, every time I go on to social media, I either see from you or the actual, because I follow Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
Like, I'll see a highlight of Mike just hitting a home run.
Yeah.
Or 2 home runs.
Yeah. Against the Orioles. Dude's been lighting it up. I don't post like ever on social media, but like I want the world to know that this kid's in the big leagues because he's busted his ass to get there. So I've been blowing up social media lately with stuff, with like highlights and stuff, like he said. So after our senior year, like we both received like paperwork and like had meetings with like major league organizations and filled out paperwork and stuff, like questionnaires, and like teams will like give you rounds or like tell you like, hey, we're looking to do here, like we like you here, type of thing. So during the last day of the draft, actually, him and I were working out the rec at Oakland, just trying to keep our mind off things, like pretty stressful day and everything. Like your childhood dream is either happening or it's not today,
right.
So we were working out, and I actually got a text from a Red Sox scout like, hey, like I know it's a tough day, hang in there, like just some positive thoughts. And he had a text from like the White Sox, and neither of us were taken. Like we didn't get taken, so it was kind of a step back. But then 2 days later, the Tampa Bay Rays called and offered him a free agent contract. And obviously he took it. We drove him to the airport. He was gone. So, but then after that, for me, like I didn't get any calls from major league organizations. So my dad was like, well, you either can sit there like a bitch and cry about it, or you can, try to do something about it. Right. So I got a call from the USPBL over there in Utica, and from the manager, and was like, hey, offering you a contract, an opportunity, try to turn some heads. You might, get signed by a major league team. So I was like, yeah, 100%. So jumped all over it. I played there 2 years. Made 2 all-star teams. You got to put up some numbers and stuff, to get picked up out of independent ball. It's called independent baseball.
Yeah.
Got hurt. Got hurt my second year. Actually blew my leg out, so that was pretty bad. It was a tough, very long rehab and process. And then actually last summer, near the end of the summer, I was finally getting healthy, but just got done blowing my leg out, so nobody was really calling. And I had one of my friends, Nick Krause, called me and said, hey, there's this workout in Indiana. It's free. You should go. So I was like, screw it. What do I have to lose? Why not at this point, right? So I just jumped in the car, head down there to Indiana, and there's supposed to be 20 teams there. It's actually crazy. There's supposed to be 20 teams there, and it's just pissing rain, just terrible weather. It's not looking good. They push it back a couple hours, and one team stayed.
This reminds me of the scene in Rookie.
Yeah, it was terrible. It was absolutely terrible. I was like, wow, I just drove all the way down here. And one team stayed, and it was the Arizona Diamondbacks, and it was their major league scout, Bill Brick. And had a good day, did well. And he's like, hey, we're going to bring you back to a workout in October with 12 other guys. And I'm like, all right, cool, sounds good. Not going to say no. So got ready for that then. Showed up in October. It was in Chicago. Did well, had a good day, which was nice. And then they called and told me about the spring training opportunity with them. Said they had to make a lot of cuts and releases in spring training, but if I made it through the first 4 or 5 days of cuts and stuff, that I'd have a good opportunity of making the team. So I was thankful for that. And but Bill, being the guy that he is, he's been around baseball. He'll be in the Scouting Hall of Fame, really old school guy. Was you need to get some reps and go to winter ball and so you can show up, ready for spring training and everything. You can be in baseball shape, kind of like what we discussed a little bit earlier. So they sent me to Southern California for the California Winter League, and I was supposed to leave that a week and a half early because I had to report to the spring training complex the 24th of February, and I broke my hand the 10th of February or something like that. So that's kind of how I got to that point of having an opportunity with the Diamondbacks, and still thankful to them and Bill and Cash, another scout that has been in contact with me from them to give me a look even after getting injured the first time. So
right.
Yeah.
So did you injure your hand playing or?
Yeah, it was actually really weird. So it was my left hand, my bottom hand of my bat, my hamate, and the hook of the hamate. Most guys break this, but it's from getting hit by a pitch. Yeah, and it happened on a swing, which was completely weird. You could actually YouTube that, folks, and you can see guys in the big leagues breaking their hand on a swing.
Yeah.
And that's how mine happened. I followed the pitch straight back, and I felt my hand just completely pop on me, and yeah, so didn't feel good. Finished the at bat, got walked. Thank God, got walked, and I got to first base, and I told the coach at first, I was like, yo, that did not feel good, man. My hand feels weird. And I was actually catching that game. So every time I caught, this guy's
catching hand.
Yeah, it's my catching hand. This guy's throwing 94 miles an hour. So I'm oh, and throwing it back to him every time. So I played 2-3 innings, and then my hand was a complete beach ball, swollen black, and I went up to the trainer and I was like, something's
not right here.
Something's not right here. And he was like, you're an idiot. And he literally said, you're an idiot. What are we doing? And then went and got x-rays and all that fun stuff. So just super unlucky. I actually had some good conversations with guys at Rochester Performance Gym about it, and we were talking about injuries on this side of my body before, and I've dislocated this shoulder twice, and so they were talking about different not being as mobile, or this shoulder moves differently, and that's the biggest and strongest I was at that point. So like maybe that had some kind of effect to then the hand breaking on a swing rather than getting hit. So he's explaining a lot better than I did, but that guy. But it actually blew my mind, like the way it made sense. You know what I mean? Yeah, exactly. Like it made sense the way he's explaining it. So that was pretty wild. But yeah, just some bad luck, honestly.
Yeah, and so now you're back on the grind. You're getting ready.
Yep.
Some opportunities possibly coming up here soon.
Yep.
So your like mindset now is still focused on that dream that you're talking about.
Yeah.
Like making it to not just the next level, but continuing to get to the next level and the next to eventually be in the big leagues along with Mike. With that mindset, do you feel like there's a different gear within like professional athletes, and you could say like the average person, and if so, like what is that?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think there is, especially talking with my buddy Mike. Like, even when I was playing independent ball and, like, you know, he was an affiliated, he was like, you got to have the mindset, you know, every day that, like, you want to play in the big leagues or, like, you're just wasting your time. Like, in the minor leagues, you don't make a ton of money, and it's definitely a grind, like, long bus rides and everything like that. So, like, you definitely have to have the mindset of, like, you're doing this, you know, for a bigger purpose to make the big leagues. Like, I heard a story... like just from a mindset perspective with like these athletes of Vladimir Guerrero, and he was in spring training when he was like 18 or 19, and he was going extremely hard like every single day, and one of the coaches came up to him and was like, you got to stop playing so hard, like you're not going to last the full season. And he looked at him and said in broken English, my family drank out of fucking puddles in the Dominican. Don't ever tell me how to play the game. And that story stuck with me. Like, obviously, I was more fortunate. You know, I was, you know, not that less fortunate as he was, you know, in the Dominican and stuff. But that's kind of the mindset a lot of those guys have. It's like super intense. Like, you only have one chance at it. You know, you don't want to have any regrets with it. And I mean, that's kind of why I keep trying to battle through injuries, because I just feel like I have more, you know, more in me, and I'm not ready to, you know, stop yet. So
yeah,
I know I've heard like stories of people, like guys that are in the professionals, but they'll go to like the minor leagues, or they'll talk about their time in the minor leagues.
Yeah.
And like pitchers especially, they'll say like, you can't miss with a pitch because, you know, you're not necessarily going to get like in the majors where there's a lot of guys who just don't swing at the first pitch. Like everyone's just like so hungry to keep moving forward.
Right.
Like you don't get away with, you know, you can't get away with just, you know, parking that first pitch fastball like right down the middle or something, you know, because people are just up there, they're hacking, they're playing for survival basically at that point.
Yeah, for sure. And like you see like a lot of the younger Dominicans and stuff, and they're sending like some money home and stuff like that, which is sad to see, you know. And it's really life or death for a lot of those guys. And like some of them, they come here to the States and they don't know how to flush a toilet and stuff, man. Like you got to walk them through certain things. It's a big adjustment for them. But like it's from a pitching perspective, like as you get up through the levels in the minor leagues, like how good those guys actually are. Like if you watch a game on TV, you might think like, oh, I could hit that. But like when you step into the box, you can hear 98 miles an hour going past you. Like you can hear it and it buzzes.
I'm sure you actually feel it too.
Oh yeah, it's a different a different experience in all honesty. Like the fastest I've ever seen is 101, and that was something. I implore all you people to stand in a box for that. It's something. It's crazy.
So how does it feel when someone like someone finds out like, hey, you're a professional ball player? They're like, yeah, man, I almost went that route. Like, didn't like get a hurt knee in high school or something like that. I was gonna make it to the big show.
Yeah, I mean, you're always gonna run into those people, and hey, if that helps them sleep better at night, that's fine. Like they can think that. I mean, that's cool. Like people don't really understand it till you do it. You know what I mean? I'm sure people say that about the military and everything. You know, with you too. Like people don't understand it until they're actually in it or in the suck, or whatever you guys say type of thing. So I mean, you're always gonna run into that. More power to them. You know, if they're happy with that. So
just a little chuckle on the inside, probably from you.
Yeah, it's been me. I'm like, oh, cool.
Yeah, good for you.
Cool, man. Yeah.
I mean, you're living. That's like the dream. I mean, any kid that's ever played baseball, like they just like. I mean, I know as a kid, you always just like picture yourself. You know, you watch it on TV, like you're just like, that's what I want to do. Like, that's just awesome. Like you're on that path where you can get to that. So
yeah, it's pretty crazy, and it's definitely tough. Like a lot of guys, always guys, in the lower levels working to get you out, and the guys up top, working hard to keep you down. And It's kind of dog eat dog, but you meet a lot of cool dudes, even dudes that you're competing with, like, because guys, you're all embracing the same grind, with like going through the minors and dealing with all that. So
with that grind, and like where you're ramping up your training now to get back, like, do you have a social life? Like, how do you balance that? Like, is there going out? Is it super strict on your nutrition? Super strict on, like, I'm not drinking because, like, I'm getting ready for tomorrow and I have a big day, like I have a long day of training tomorrow,
right.
So like this is more important.
Yeah, so I don't really drink a whole lot at all, and like in the off season or even now and stuff, especially when I'm ramping my training up. Diet is huge, especially if you're trying to make significant improvements. Like, there's coaches always say, like, you better show up looking like you did something this off season. So like from a diet perspective, eating what you're supposed to be eating, not like McDonald's and stuff like that, just to get the calories. But I really don't have that much of a social life right now. Not even really much in the off season. I mean, half of it is like you isolate yourself a little bit, to try to, focus and like, go after your goals and everything. But at times in the season, it's definitely important to, you got to be able to find an outlet to get away at times, or else like mentally, and emotionally, like psychologically, like it's just going to take a huge toll on you.
Right.
So like some guys go out and they go a little harder than others, but going out for a beer or whatever, like in the season, just to get away from it for a little bit. If family's in town, that's always nice. You can see them to help get away from it. Take some ease off mentally, because baseball too. Like, if you fail 7 out of 10 times, you're doing a phenomenal job,
right?
And you're playing very, very well, which is just sick to think about. Like,
I wish school worked that way.
Yeah,
sometimes.
if you get 30% on your test, you're actually killing it. You're
Man, I would have been
good.
crushing it in high school.
Yeah.
I know, like, I hear like people talking like with powerlifting too. Kind of goes along with that. Like, talk about like going into the void, and like it's kind of that point of you're committing so much to something that you're going to put every effort towards that, mm-hmm. and other things just tend to fall off. So like for powerlifting, there's only a certain amount of people that can do that, because right. There's not a whole lot of money in the sport, like. And obviously, like, minor league baseball too is like the same way.
Yeah.
It's not going to be like a long-term living based. What you're doing there.
Way. Yeah.
So like, how do you position yourself to where you can kind of go into that void and like, still have some sort of balance where you're not feeling like you're totally just on your own out there. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, for sure. Like, definitely the relationships you make with guys. In the minor leagues, like, I'm in contact like with those guys, all the time, like texting each other. The thing is too is we always send each other film of like our swings. Like, baseball guys are obsessed with breaking down their swings, and like,
this is this guy and his freaking bench press.
So. Yeah, no, it's the same thing though. Like in powerlifting, like when I was rehabbing a lot of Rochester Performance Gym, like those guys were so intense. You know what I mean? Like with how they went about their business, and like I respected the hell out of it, and I love the environment there because it was super intense. And that's how that's kind of how my personality is, but that's how it is in baseball too. Like breaking down your swing, there's like so many apps now, like to draw lines and stuff like in your swing at pausing it. And so that's like also too, like you reach out to guys, talk to them about how's the grind going or whatever. Like you talk about hitting, your workouts, like maybe how tough it is that day or stuff like that. So like you have guys that are going through the same thing with you, you know what I mean? Like sometimes you gotta just vent about it, like today sucks, man. Like, like today sucks, or like, hey, I gotta work on this and this with my swing, like it looks terrible, like what do you think, and like talk about different things with the swing. Guys are like probably exactly like powerlifting thing with breaking down video and stuff like that. It's super important too, and it helps a lot. Like I absolutely love it. I could watch swing highlights and like break it down all the time. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, it sounds just like the weightlifting life.
Yeah,
the people that you're surrounded by, they're the ones bringing you up, but you're also like grinding with them. You have that commonality between
exactly.
like, this sucks, but also like you're both getting better. You both have different vantage points, and one guy's gonna be more knowledgeable in this, and the other's gonna be more knowledgeable in that, and you bring them together, and you both learn together, and you both grow. And
for
the
sure.
environment, that's
like you want to surround yourself with people that kind of have the same goals and like aspirations that you do. Like even if it's at the gym, like I have friends that I don't want to work out with at all because, you know, like they just go about things differently than I do. And like, I'm just like, hey man, I love you, but no, you know, like type of thing. Like, no, I can't do that because it's not like they like feel like you're holding you back, but it's kind of around that essence, you know what I mean?
And it's
like,
not cocky to say that. Like, there's a difference between like being a dickhead and being just aware.
Yeah.
Like, that was like what Garrett did when he moved from going to OU's gym every day to RPG. Like, couldn't have been a better move for him because his awareness to that level, like, this is capping my like potential of staying here, and going here is really raising that ceiling or cutting that ceiling off where the sky's the limit for him at that point.
Right. And I mean, anytime you're in like any sort of performance, like athletics, I mean, it's all about optimization. So that's why you watch the videos, you know, whether it's a squat or a baseball swing, you need to find where you're like leaking power, where, you know, you're not getting the most out of your movement, because that's going to be your limiting factor. You can be the strongest person in the world, but if you move inefficiently, you're not going to be able to achieve that. So
so like for you listeners out there, go bring your phone with you, set it up. If you put in a shoe, ask a friend, like take a video of your lifts, take pictures of your gains, track your, like, if you're losing weight, track that by taking a picture at least once a week, and you can really puts in perspective like the growth you have, but also like where you want to work continually from that point.
Compare. That's one thing I need
to yourself.
Well, not only to yourself, but find people, you know, find someone who's built similar to you, you know, and see, okay, you know, like I'm sure you have people you try to model your swing after.
Oh, 100%. I watch a ton of video on certain guys, you know what I mean, that you try to model certain aspects of your swing around. Yeah, for sure.
Like, you're not going to take like a Yasiel Puig and try to swing the same as him.
No, he's like 260 and yoked out of his mind.
Yeah. So like, I'm not going to take a squat from a guy that's 140 pounds.
Yeah, from like an Evan.
Or like a 300 pounder. Well, I don't want to take a half squat anyway. But you got to, I mean, there's just so many ways, and you're always going to be able to learn something.
Yeah.
Whether it's from looking at what you're doing or what somebody else is doing. Even if it's, you know, maybe somebody else is making a mistake in what they're doing and you're comparing it to what you're doing. You might be making that same mistake just to a lesser extent. Mm-hmm. So you can learn so much from just seeing, you know, what they're doing.
You're gaining awareness because of what you're surrounded by. And I remember last summer is when I met Ian in the gym. We were just, even before we even actually met each other, we were just kind of next to each other in the gym, like for weeks before we even said anything. But that's last August was when I squatted for the first time in over 4 years, from like once I hurt my back. And so I was just getting back into it. I was really self-conscious, like I was like, but also super scared because it's the first time I was putting weight in my back. Getting back into it, and Ian would always be on like the rack next to me, and he'd be like repping out like 315, and he's this guy that's like, I mean, not smaller, but like a shorter height than I am, kind of like that, like less weight. And it was honestly like a motivator, but also like seeing him and his form and how much intention he put behind like his lifts, I was like, that just like, before I even knew you, like had respect, but also was like learning from you and like cultivating that from like awareness of like what I was surrounding myself by. And so when I would see you at the gym, I'd be like, take notes from that dude.
I mean, that's like, I'm like super like in the gym and intense and like trying to get stuff done too. Like I've seen Garrett for years, and like my buddy Palm and I've always been like, dude gets after it. Like we never talked or so.
I was just gonna say, because you said it was like a couple weeks. I think we've been seeing each other at the gym for like 4 years.
Yeah, like I was something like, dude, like I know that guy gets after it, and he's a strong dude, but like he's like this, and I'm like this, and like, you know, it's not necessarily like a social hour, but I do enjoy, like, we've had good conversations in the gym to the point where like, okay, we gotta stop because we gotta stop. We gotta get back to working out, but it's great, like programming, like certain lifts you do, mobility, yoga stuff, like it's all good to have those conversations with guys that, you know, you've seen like straight getting after it. And everybody has their own thing. Like, I'm not hating on other people that go to the gym, you know, all the time, but there's a certain people that you want to surround yourself with that you see at the gym all the time. So
just in life, even, like,
for sure.
They say you're the common denominator between the 5 people you spend the most time with. So that's not just like fit, like that's how much money you make, that's your hobbies, that's what you find funny, that's who you marry, whether you get married or not. Like, the people you surround yourself by are actually like what you become. Mm-hmm. So like, and we have the power of dictating who we surround ourselves by. A lot of times we're blinded by that. We're put in this environment or put in this circle, and maybe it's scary to leave that circle because you've known it for so long. But I know I've had the most growth, like not just psychologically, but even physically, when I just like stood up from that circle I was surrounded with for so long and was like peace, and like found a new one, people that I wanted to become. So
that's a tough thing to do at times too, like remove yourself from what's comfortable, or you've been around for a while, and like a lot of people don't like change, so it's definitely a tough thing to do.
Yeah. And I think like having a willingness to learn, like I mean that's obviously something that I try to improve at, because I mean like going to the gym with the same people for 4 years and not like ever having talked to them, like that's kind of like that's a little bit ridiculous, like I can admit that.
For sure. Actually, funny story about that. Because I was like talking to my boy Joey, because you're an engineer, right?
Yeah.
I found this out through my other buddy. Because we were at the gym one day, and I think you might have been there, and my buddy and I were working out, and like you were deadlifting, and I was like, dude, I've seen this dude deadlift like 5 bills before. And he's like, oh, I know Garrett. And I was like, how do you know him? And he's like, oh, he's an engineer. Like, I'm an engineer, whatever. He's like, obviously I knew my friend was an engineer, but he's like, yeah, he's an engineer. I seen him at the end, like we've had classes together or something like that. I'm like, oh, cool. And he's like, yeah, he's an engineer. I'm like, oh, cool. Like we've never actually like had a conversation, but like I knew his name.
Got backstory behind it.
And I was like, dude, I've seen this guy like deadlift like 5 bills before. And he's like, oh, I know that guy. And I was like, oh, okay. Just like weird things like that,
Yeah, and it's just like if you're like. For me, I don't know. Sometimes you get in the gym and like I kind of get like the RBF, like you're in your zone. I'm like a person that looks pissed off when I'm at the gym.
Yeah.
Like
I've gotten that.
It's just the intensity.
Intimidated. Yeah. Like he's intimidating. Like not actually. Like he's a sweet little teddy bear. But in the gym, you don't know him. Like you're like he's gonna rip my head off.
I mean, you gotta get like hyped up, too, when you're gonna just rip some 5 bills.
Yeah.
I heard somebody call it wheels the other day, like throw some wheels on there, and I loved it. So I've been using it. I've been using it a lot lately. I've been using it a lot, trying to get in my vernacular. But people like throw some wheels. I'm like, oh, I kind of like that. That's different. I haven't heard that before. So
like just like being willing to like take stuff and learn from people. Like as soon as I went to RPG, I like noticed a difference where like Oakland, a lot of people, are either like this is like their first gym they're going to, or they're maybe insecure about what they're doing because they're not used to going to the gym. So like a lot, like obviously like over 4 years you're gonna build a network through the gym anyways. Like you and Evan and Kirsty and like all these people I've met. But like going to RPG, like almost immediately I start building a network just because I'm going in there with like this open mindset where it's like I can learn from so many people here, and you're like just constantly getting feedback from people, and it's just like if I were to apply that at Oakland, I'm sure like I literally would have known everybody in the gym.
It's not something you want. Let me tell you, from experience, it's not something you want. I mean,
like,
they're great people, but at the same time,
RPG 2 is just a different environment. It's like a different like type of beast. Compared to like more of a public gym like the Rec at Oakland. I was
gonna say because it's so confined and small, but in a good way, where it's like not everyone's on top of each other, but the culture there all has the same mindset.
Right.
And the culture there, all like you walk in, they're not going to be intimidated by Garrett's resting bitch face. Like
no,
they're going to be like if that's you and you're just like super less like don't look anybody in the eyes and act like you're the tough guy, they're going to like literally laugh you out of there because they're actually like could lift double what you can lift at that point.
Yeah, and
they're not dickheads about it either. Like they're so like you just go up and say hi. Like they're so nice and so genuine. They literally just like want to help, and that's so many people that I feel like everyone else from the outsider point of view is like, well, what if they know that I don't lift as much as they do? That's not what they're thinking.
And I mean, I've never seen judgment passed towards people for not lifting certain amounts of the gym.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone most of the people that are there, like especially the regulars, they've been there long enough that they are able to like look at other people's situation and appreciate that for like what it is. Maybe you are 35 years old and you're just starting powerlifting. They can have an appreciation for that because they see the good it's done in their life, and like they can see that from like a mature perspective basically, and so they can still appreciate that. There's not like the judgment like, oh, why is he only squatting 250? Like nobody does that. Like Yeah. You hit your weight, and and they can tell that you, like, people can tell that you we're grinding through it, and doing your best. Like, everybody's supportive.
Yeah,
and that's
if you put out, they'll like you. If you put out and bust your ass, they're gonna respect you and like you. Right away.
I mean, to the listeners, not in every situation in life, don't always put out. But in this,
this guy wouldn't take it there. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah, can't have a serious.
Just clarifying it. Just clarifying it for the listeners.
No, those guys at RPG were awesome. Like, I had a cast on trying to put weight on the bar and stuff, and they would run over and just grab it and put it on for me. I'm like, thanks, man. Just super nice guys. So yeah, I got nothing but good things to say about that gym.
Yeah. So what's your training like now? Like, what's a typical week look like?
Yeah. So we actually talked about this at the gym a little bit today. So I started to ramp it back up with running and being super explosive too.
When you say running, he's not just going on the treadmill and doing a jog.
No.
Like, OU has this huge hill, and he goes outside and roughs it and toughs it out there in the summer heat, and just wind sprints up the hill.
Yeah, running up the hill or going to the track and doing stuff like that. Definitely super important. So yeah, the hill, getting my legs, back under me for. This guy had one thing one day that was I was like, what do you got? He's like, legs, I'm going to do 5x20. I'm like, what? So then I was like, well, I did it, and it sucked so bad. So that's been my thing lately. Because it sucks so bad.
You do what you hate the most.
You're like, wow, I feel like a bitch. I got to get better at this, you know what I mean? So I've been doing a lot of that lately, trying to get, more conditioning back in my legs. I'm finally able to start to hold weight better in my hand since I got my cast off and everything. For a while I had to use a strap a lot of the time or something like that. In baseball too, it's super important with body proportions. Is they say whatever you do for the front side, you have to do double for the back side from a throwing perspective. And there's a lot of lifts that I can't do being an overhead throwing athlete. I haven't done overhead shoulder press or overhead anything in years. I don't do trap stuff because I want to be as rotational as possible through here. I can't do front squats anymore because I blew my leg out. So we're obviously there's still a lot of things you can do, upper, lower. Right. I usually superset.
So it sounds very functional, but also it sounds like you're aiming towards a lot of fast twitch.
For sure. Groups. Especially because I'm only 5'9". And so I want to be I need to be very strong, but I also need to be very explosive for my height.
Yeah. I mean, you're all 5'8" of that 5'9". That's it.
Thank you. So I definitely have to be super explosive, but I have to be if they always say if you're shorter, if you're smaller, you got to be strong. To be able to hit the ball farther and all that jazz like that. So. Workouts right now, I'm adding in a lot more running and stuff like that. So now I got to up my diet more.
Yeah.
I'm burning a lot more calories and everything. I need to put a lot more weight back on. So that's another battle, of course, as you guys know, I'm sure.
I feel like baseball is really misunderstood too. People think, you're throwing a ball and you're swinging a bat. Probably they're thinking arms are most important, stuff like that. But really your lower body and core, that's gotta be 80% of your true strength on the field.
Yeah, most definitely. But a lot of med ball throws, stuff like that, rotational, anti-rotational workouts and stuff like that. The thing is with baseball, injuries happen in that sport because you literally do the same thing thousands of times in a season, every single day. I turn the same way to do this. I swing around my spine the same way. I don't, I'm not a switch hitter.
Right.
So I swing the same way every single day over and over and over again. Overhead throwing motions, it's not natural, especially at the speeds that guys do it at that level.
Yeah.
So that's why injuries, certain injuries are always seen as baseball, injuries type of things.
One, because it puts so much stress on the body. Probably, you have football, right? It's super high contact sport, which puts a different kind of stress on the body.
Right.
But baseball, the amount of reps that you're doing and the speed and the velocity that you're putting your body through, whether it's throwing motion, like you said, you're working protagonist and antagonist muscle groups in a way that's very different than Garrett would work protagonist and antagonist, or I would, because with your arm or even with your legs, with hamstring injuries, Your quad brings your leg up, right? You're using all that fast twitch muscle movement to like put your leg out as fast as you can, but your hamstring is what slows it down. Because if you don't have your hamstring, your leg's just going to keep going, right? Mm-hmm. And so like that, I feel like that's why some people get hamstring injuries, is because like it's not that developed versus like the quads. But that's something that a lot of people I feel like don't have an awareness about. It's like, I didn't know that baseball players to that level do like for every front muscle group you're working at double on the back.
Yeah, double, because like the harder you want to throw too, like you can only throw as hard as like your arm can stop itself.
Right.
Like brakes on a car. So like you want to be able to decelerate, so like you want to be able to do a lot more back. And like you look at these guys in the show, man, like their backs are just massive, like thick backs, like controlling the bat too, like using different muscle groups. But a lot of pitchers like have, elbow injuries. Like I know so many guys in pro ball or even in college that have had Tommy John, like torn their UCL, just completely blown it out. And that's like a very painful rehab and like long recovery. But the rehab for that is like so much shoulder and back, like it's unbelievable. To try to regain that, to protect that elbow and everything.
Yeah, I know. Like you see, I mean, people will say like, oh, you hear people talk about how dudes look good in baseball pants, and it's because the dudes wearing the baseball pants, their legs and their glutes and stuff are just freaking jacked, because that's where all the power comes from.
No, yeah, you do a lot of legs, yeah.
So sure. True story today, when I was leaving the gym, I ran into a friend that knows both of us. But I asked them, what's something that an average person want to ask like Yeti, like out of curiosity, and they honestly said, "How do you get that ass?"
Who the hell said that?
Leaving that name off the podcast.
He's totally making this up.
I'm not making that up. I swear. They did say it as a joke, but honestly, like, how do you get that ass? And like, what are you saying? It's like, be a catcher for however many years you've been a freaking catcher for.
Yeah, I guess,
man. Develops that big booty.
I mean, after I blew my leg out too, I gotta do a lot of band stuff for like my hips and everything to like overcompensate for my quad. But yeah, catching a lot of legs. A lot of stuff like that.
And you'd be hitting on all the white girl IG like fitness pages right now. The bands they're in.
I know.
Lift heavy weight. That's all you gotta do.
Yeah.
You want big legs.
Kirsty about that one time. I was like, yeah. So if you see me in the corner doing like the Instagram girl stuff, like, don't give me a hard time.
If you start doing like the stair stepper, like leg kickbacks, that's where we draw the line.
Yeah, that's where you gotta call somebody out for sure. Yeah. All right, tell me after, off camera.
All right, we'll do. But I actually do have, this comes from somebody else, not the same person, for the fan question of the week. This one comes from Haley Forbes. She is the... way to put it out there like that. She's the one who runs OU's gym. She's the grad assistant for the gym.
She's in the desk out by the... She's in the office by the desk.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the one that runs the show. But essentially... all she was wondering was like with like being a professional athlete and everything like that. Pretty much like classic. You've been a jock your whole life. You've probably gotten the jock like stereotype several times. So she was kind of wondering, and I was wondering this. I was like, that's a really good question. About like how have the transitions between like the highs of the successes amongst like your collegiate career and then being signed to the Diamondbacks, and then the lows of like getting injured and having setbacks within those, how have they impacted like your own like mental health or like identity? So essentially, like, has it taken a toll from being like a top dog in some environments to then being like, not that this is a bad thing, but where you are today, like recovering and being an unsigned like free agent?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely takes a toll on you mentally. I mean, how I was raised too, my dad's a pretty intense dude, like at a young age. Like I had to run home from practice once because I had a bad practice. So that's kind of the environment I come from. Like, so like after each of my injuries, like I had a bad one in college and then a couple in pro ball. He's like, you have, every effect of how you respond to this type of thing. You know what I mean? And I just know that too, like, or at least I feel like in my mind, like I definitely have more in me, and more in the tank. But I'm not a person at all that like expresses their emotions. Like I just kind of keep to myself. Like all my ex-girlfriends have said that, you know, like you don't ever want to talk when you're mad or something like that. I'm like, no, like I just keep to myself, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a judgment-free zone. Like that's the one thing that we take after Planet Fitness. Like, hey, if you want to cry,
yeah,
you're here for the emotions.
You can cry right here. If you
nice, I'm good, but yeah, I kind of just keep to myself with stuff like that. But even like the lowest of the lows, you have your main goal in mind, which is the biggest motivating, factor, force in it for somebody like me. And I'm lucky that I have, guys like my buddy Mike, like Mike Brasso, or a couple other guys like Tyler Palm, and those guys that are playing, in the minor leagues and stuff like that too. That like, a text message every once in a while, like, yo, you can do this, like, like have a good day, brother, something like that. It's always helpful. You know what I mean? Yeah. You're never gonna like hate on somebody like one of your boys, reaching out to you that care about you. So yeah, that's helping from a motivated perspective, too. Yeah. So.
No, yeah, I think that was a great answer, especially because you brought up, like, I think so many people are confronted with challenges, or they have dreams, and that's what they stay as. They always stay as dreams, because in their head they're like, I can never achieve that. But then once you either start doing that dream then becomes like a reality eventually. Or if you're surrounding yourself by people like Mike and people like all your other buddies that you've met through playing in different, whether it was college or whether it was professional ball or independent ball, like you've seen them be where you're at, and then also like you've seen them go from there and actually make it, especially Mike.
Yeah,
and
for
like
sure.
It's a reality now. Like that's a visualization and an actuality that you can see yourself doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that can be translated across the whole life.
Right, most definitely. I mean, I had injury in college. That was probably my worst one out of the ones that I've had. It was a head injury. That was probably the most tough one to come back from, like a really long process to come back from that. And that one definitely took tolls mentally on me too, because I suffered like short-term memory loss for a little bit. Like I fractured my skull in 2 places, and I was bleeding in my brain for a little, and stuff like that. But so that mentally was the most difficult, because I lost a ton of weight too. And like you try to come back, and it's just you literally start from square one. Like from like years and years of work is just gone, like out the window. And you're starting from square one again to try to get back to, or even better, than what you were before.
Right.
Yeah. So like mentally, like the mental side of baseball too, like that's something people always talk about in baseball. Like you fail so much to the point, like how are you gonna, shake it off and get ready for the next pitch, or like ready for the next play type of thing. So like mental strength, whatever people want to call it, it's super important. So
Coping mechanisms.
Yeah.
Not to be cliche, we had a high school basketball coach though, and his motto, because he always came up with these mottos. He'd have posters all over the locker room, all these different sayings and stuff. And he was a great coach. But the one year the motto was live it. Because I mean, you get people all the time, oh, I'm gonna do this, I want to do this. Like, if you want to do these things, you have to live your day-to-day life with that as your goal. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, if there comes a day where it's just like, especially with baseball, I mean, you're on the clock basically.
100%, yeah, for sure.
So if there comes a time where it's just like you just have like a lapse or something where you stop living that moment, and like pursuing that, you're taking yourself out of it, and that's the worst thing you could do. So
yeah,
just living it and being what you want to be, not just talking about it.
Right. That reminds me of like one of my favorite quotes for this year. I kind of have like just like 2 or 3 of them that I like really just hone in on almost like every day. It's something that keeps me motivated. But that's works so perfectly with this quote from Jen Sincero, and it says, if you want to live a life you've never lived, you must do things you've never done. Mm-hmm. So like that's that continual thing of I set on the prize, but also like continuing to change and actually living it and making it your reality. And I had that power with like when I was coming back from my injury. You've shown that through coming back through your multiple injuries and still having your eye on the prize and making the big leagues and ramping up for like the big stuff that's coming up in the next couple months for you.
Yeah.
And
yeah, you got to make it happen. That's what anything comes down to. If you're gonna be successful, it's because you're gonna make it happen.
Yeah, that's why I think everybody motivates themselves, in their own way or like different ways, and like that's cool. Like whatever works for certain people, and like there's definitely certain days that like in the gym, if I'm struggling, I have to think about the end goal and like why you're actually doing this, you know. And like sometimes I will say to myself like, quit being a bitch right now, or like you're being a bitch right now. And like for me, that's like I can motivate myself. Like it doesn't work for everybody, but like sometimes like you're being a bitch right now, and then you're like, all right, let's go.
Do you hear that in your voice, or is that your dad's voice?
No, that's my voice. Yeah.
You're getting into some deep psychotherapy right there.
He's gotten softer now ever since. Yeah, I got a couple younger siblings, so he definitely got softer. But I caught the brunt end of that force. But it was good. So
I have a shortcut for that Garrett actually showed me. It's just always having smelling salts and just whipping it up.
There you go.
Constantly.
I know how you feel though. I was the coach's kid for 14 years or something. Yeah. So I mean,
it's good. Man. It's not too bad. Like mom wasn't too happy from that move, but it's all good.
I always find it interesting with like obviously every athlete is an individual, but most sports and sporting events, like especially with baseball, it's a team function, right? And you have a head coach, and that coach has to be the coach for all of them. Sometimes they have different implementations for each individual, but a lot of times they have the same style for the whole team. And I know for me, I was always, that's why I think I did well in the military, was I always lived up to that bigger guy screaming in your face, being the alpha and like telling you to do better, to stop being a bitch, to like push more weight, to like grind down through it. But for other people, I've seen countless people fold under that. Just puts even more stress on them. But they also they'll do better in other instances where they'll have a coach that really speaks intentionality into a specific little hey, why don't you change this up? And for me, that never really worked.
Yeah, I think that's super important. For leaders, from a leadership standpoint of how to communicate with certain individuals to really reach their full potential. You know what I mean? Like when I was in college, I could get on somebody like that one way, but if I did to another kid, not cool at all. You have to find different ways to communicate with everybody, or what that person's niche is to really motivate them or bring them back to center type of thing. So that's the biggest thing from a leadership standpoint. Even managers, in pro ball and stuff, those guys a lot of them, they've been around it for a little bit too. You know what I mean? So they know different ways how to communicate with different people to push a point across. So yeah, I think that's a great point. Yeah.
And I mean, you've I'm sure all of us have played sports. You've been around a variety of coaches, right? So you have super vocal coaches. You have some that are more the passive, just gonna tell you, hey, maybe try this,
do better.
But I know I've been around coaches that have had one speed, and sometimes that works out, sometimes it doesn't. For example, I was going to play club football at Oakland one year, and the coach had one speed, and it's MF for this, MF for that, in your face, and it was I'm a smart guy, I just need to be instructed on what to do, and I can put the effort in, and it's that just wears through you so quick.
Yeah.
And in high school, I had a coach who was very vocal, and I actually met with him one time and talked about a time during a game. I was hey, I'm not going to respond to that. That's not going to get more out of me. There's better ways to do it, and that's tough to do. That's one of the toughest things to do as an athlete, is go to a coach and tell him hey, I need something different. But a lot of times the coach, if it's a good coach, they'll have a higher level of respect for you, and you'll be able to, work better with them if you're willing to do that. But that's the toughest. I remember that was one of the toughest meetings to have. It's just to tell a coach hey, because I mean it's that mentality you have where you just want to you just want to make that big person happy.
Yeah.
You just want to do everything that they tell you to do, and you want to do it now, and but sometimes you just have to put your pride aside and say, hey, this ain't right. This ain't it.
Yeah.
There's a way to coach me, and this ain't it, which is tough to do.
And where I was kind of wondering is, since you progressed from a high school to probably summer ball to college to independent and professional, the skill levels of the players and the just all around field of play, that's escalating. Have you seen big vast differences between a very successful coach who can really connect with the team as individuals but yet still lead a team along that same journey?
Yeah, it's definitely different for like different coaches' personalities. I've had coaches that make a huge emphasis on like psychological things, but they push them, like they would push classes differently, like freshman, sophomore, junior, senior type of thing. Like my coach at Oakland would hammer freshmen, like psychologically, like just toy with them to the point you're like, wow, man, like I remember that. That's tough. Like right now, like you just like to the point whatever you say, you feel like you cannot win. You know what I mean? Like you feel like he's like testing you, type of thing. You know, like to the point when you're a senior, you're just laughing about it because you know he's just freaking playing with your head. You know, and he's trying to mess with you.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, I've definitely had good and not so good coaches at all levels. The assistant coaches in college too are like way more chill, like and laid back, which is always good. Head guys are pretty straight, or like to that because that's their livelihood. You know what I mean? Like that's how they feed their family and like buy a house and everything too. So you can respect that. But yeah, it's pretty different. Pro ball's a lot more. They're a lot more chill because it's like if you don't do well, you suck. You're gone, and the next day.
They'll have someone else there.
There's another dude in that locker, and that's the most difficult thing for people to get to is because they come from college. Like maybe you get more help. Like if you're struggling, like coaches be like, "Oh, let me help you with this, this, and this." Like you get to pro ball, it's like you better figure it out, man, or like you're not gonna be around very long. You know what I mean? Or like you got to go to them to ask them, and like they're not gonna like pat you on the neck like it's okay, buddy. Like you better figure it out. You're gonna get released.
Yeah.
So it's definitely different. Yeah, from college to professional ranks of coaches. I've enjoyed at people at both levels. So
I remember we had this conversation probably a couple of weeks ago, but I was asking about what it was like to be in college, be a college athlete, and then do training, like weight training with the team.
Yeah.
And how like I just feel like I would hate that simply because like I know what works really well for me. I'm one of those people that can like have a high self-awareness in the gym of how hard I should go and push myself and like go past that barrier to like a healthy point. So I don't need someone like screaming in my ear, but also like I'm good at listening to my body. I know if I should be pushing this weight today or if I should go up and just challenge myself that much more, or if I'm supposed to be hitting that heavier weight and like today's really not the day, rather than struggle through it. Like listen to your body, drop down a little bit, maybe think like your rep scheme that day. But like you're telling me like everyone it's fit for like this. That more like the amateur lifter, someone who really doesn't know what they're doing, and do you feel like that handcuffs you or stints you at all?
It definitely can. I mean, I was lucky enough that I had a really good relationship with our strength guy at Oakland. Out of season, or like during fall ball, we were lifting like 3 times a week. Like that wasn't enough for me. you know, like wanted more. Like I had goals and dreams and aspirations to do better. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and
your
stuff
family
like that.
grew up drinking from puddles.
No, not mine. Mom and Dad, thank you for everything. Bless up. So like I went to him and I was like, hey, like, can I do this and this on the other days? Come in, like we figure something out. And he was totally cool about it because I enjoyed the team lifts in college. Because like they're at like 6 a.m. too, and like you got to get the guys like hyped up type of thing. It's not like as I'm going down each rep, guys are like spitting on my face because they're screaming at me. Like on max days, it was kind of like that, and I loved it. Like it was awesome, like super intense. But it's tough too, man, because a lot of guys, like you said, aren't as into lifting and stuff because it hurts and like stuff like that. So like you got to be able to motivate those guys or keep them down. Like you're missing the bigger picture. Like you're letting the team down, or whatever right now. But like from a programming perspective, it was very. Like, why am I, as a senior, necessarily doing something that 165-pound freshman is doing? You know what I mean? Like, why are we doing the same thing?
It's a one-size-fits-all.
Yeah, like, why are we doing that? You know what I mean? So, I mean, I was lucky enough. I had a good strength coach that he let me, kind of do different things. But if you, like, disrespected that man in any way, he's going to eat your lunch and get on you about it. So, I don't really think it keyholed me. I think it didn't allow certain individuals to possibly reach, not necessarily potential, but different strides maybe they could have found.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying they could have been better, but I think I think they would have found different avenues for them that would have worked better for them.
Right.
If they weren't so, this is what it is for everybody.
At the same time, your mindset, I feel like, has been seen. I've seen it. Like, it's a little bit different where you went out of your way to make sure that you found those extra reps and those extra days because you knew that's what you needed and that's what you wanted.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely, like I said, like I was lucky enough that he didn't make it an ego thing that I was coming to him saying like I knew more, which that's not what it was at all.
Yeah.
Like, he didn't make an ego thing, which was nice. Like he was very open and honest with me about certain things, but also too, like, it's tough for those guys, and that's why the programming is so rigid, is because if they get a ton of guys hurt or like guys are blowing their backs out and like can't play on the field, like they're gonna get fired.
Yeah, that's their job.
You know what I mean? Like that's their job too. Like, so you have to understand, like, they can't get you hurt because if you can't perform on the field, like that's why you have, Oakland is paying you to go to school there on a scholarship is to play baseball, and if you can't even do that because you're getting hurt in the weight room, like that's a problem. You know what I mean? So that's kind of why too, like, they hold you back. Like my buddy Mike and I, like on deload weeks, we were like, nah. And so we'd like do the regular stuff, and he'd come over and just tear us apart. Like, just would scream at us for, not like using the weight on the sheet. Like, if we would do more than the weight on the sheet, he would just rip us.
Yeah, Mike's now just like, look at me now.
Yeah, Mike's just like stacks now.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's just like, Mike and I are just more of an intense, type of guy than some other guys were on the team.
I mean, you're probably much more advanced too in your knowledge of what your body responds to and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's a great point for sure. Like position specific things, or like what works for me or what doesn't work for me. Like in college, I was huge. I really like trap bar deadlift a lot compared to conventional because my form with conventional was atrocious, and like my lower back just felt like it got blown up. You know what I mean? Like every time. So I love doing trap bar, but it's like I didn't know as much then as I do now. Type of thing about how to progress with that.
And I think people get caught up in that a lot too. Like, there's not just some, like, you don't just reach this level of enlightenment when it comes to lifting where it's like, oh, you know what you're doing. You're just constantly learning. Like, you're just constantly being able to fine tune what you're doing more and more. And just when you think you got things figured out, then an injury comes in or something else comes in and you have to adapt and you have to change. And like, that's just like the beauty of it, is that there's no like, you don't reach this end of the line where you're like, oh, I know everything now.
Right.
There's just, that never happens.
Yeah,
you always can learn something.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah.
I think that's good. Like, I think Garrett always likes to ask our guests one last question.
Yeah.
Shoot him with that.
Do you have any advice to leave people?
Words of wisdom.
Words of wisdom
from Garrett.
I mean, honestly, I'm always a guy, like, if you have goals and everything or dreams, like, sorry to sort of like, fuck what everybody else thinks about that. Like, if you got any, like, go fucking do it. Like, you can do anything you want in this world, honestly. Like, I was told by teachers, coaches, everything growing up, like, I would never play professional baseball. I'd never even play Division I baseball and stuff like that. Like, fuck what everybody says. Like, you can do whatever you want. Like, honestly, if you put the work in, you put the time in and stuff, like, you can do it. So, like, there's a quote that somebody's like, people aren't laughing at your dreams, like, they're not big enough, type of thing. And that's kind of an approach I've had to, like, this journey and everything like that. And hopefully it continues a little longer and keep at it.
Yeah. There you go.
You don't have to look far to find naysayers, that's for sure.
No, that's for sure. That's disappointing, too. There's enough out there in the real world for that.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming on the podcast tonight.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, boys. Nice finally meet you, bro.
Yeah. Only 4 years.
4 years, but yeah.
Takes him 4 years to introduce himself to a fellow lifter that we see each other every day, and it takes me 4 minutes.
It's a mutual respect, so,
there you go.
There's different personalities, though, too, which is always good.
Yeah, you got nerds and you got jocks. Then you got something in the middle.
Yeah, no, just be like, oh, what's up? What's your name? What's your name? Knows everybody at the gym. So
it would be great if they would listen to the podcast, though. So.
Yeah, him with the fanny pack seems to talk to everybody.
Hey, Ian got a fanny pack.
I
He
did.
brought it today to the gym. We're getting
6.
that fanny game at OU. So if you're at OU and you're listening to this, get yourself a fanny pack. Put your lifting gear inside of it. All right, it comes in great. It comes in handy because it's right there and it's a fanny. Because we're not allowed to have bags at OU.
Can't have bags there anymore.
Be on the lookout for mostly lifting stuff, fanny packs.
Oh.
Coming this fall.
Merch.
Game changer right there. Game changer.
Idea,
we haven't talked about this, but we're just out there.
You guys are hearing this from like ground zero. Like this is
it's news to everybody. So
there you go.